kind of closes out, chapter 9 does, basically kind of like an introduction to really the book of Proverbs. It kind of shifts and takes a little different direction starting in chapter 10. That's why I wanted to try to go ahead and, if we can, conclude. If not, we'll do it next week and then we'll pick up from there. But let's dig into chapter 7. I've kind of titled this one simply Life Warnings. I mean, there's just a lot of good stuff that he sends our way here, Solomon does. And just great things for us to be reminded of. And I particularly am interested in chapter 8. It takes kind of an interesting personification shift through the middle and towards the end of chapter 8 and beginning of chapter 9. We'll look at that as we get there, if we get there. So chapter 7 starts off just kind of some general reminders, encouragement that says, "My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Keep my commandments and live." We've heard a lot about that, and live. Do this and live. Have wisdom and knowledge and your days will be long. That sort of thing. So he continues along these lines. Notice these action words as well. Keep, lay up, keep. And my law as the apple of thine eye. We've heard that phrase, the apple of your eye kind of stuff. What does that mean? What's the context of this?
The thing that you concentrate on.
That's something you concentrate on.
Mine uses the word teaching. Lord, my teaching is the apple of your eye.
So this word apple, I had to look it up because I didn't know. The Hebrew word for apple actually means little man. And the context, which is a little weird, is that you're looking at something as if you're looking into someone else's eye so intently that you see your own reflection in their retina. And it's a little man. And you're that focused on. That's the context of something being the apple of your eye, is something being the little man in an eye that you're focusing on, so much so that you're really paying attention to it. I thought that was kind of neat, an interesting tidbit there. That's what apple of your eye in biblical context means. Bind them, again, action word. Bind them on thy fingers. Write them on the table of thine heart. You know, we've seen that wording, and what does that mean again when we write something on our heart? You know, Romans chapter 2, when we went through the book of Romans, it said that God writes his law upon our hearts via our conscience, just by creation itself. Even atheists, even unbelievers have the law of God written on their hearts by our conscience that God has put in there. So what does that mean to write something on your heart?
It's private.
That's part of you.
Yeah, it's part of your being.
It's part of your being. It should be part of your thought processes, part of how you process things and think of things. So it says, write these things you're learning on the table of your heart. Say unto wisdom. Again, we see the personification here of wisdom being a person. Yeah, you got something?
Yeah.
Okay. Being a person, someone being a part of your life. It says, say unto wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman. That's interesting. So we're referring to the two things that Solomon has encouraged us to keep close to us, which is understanding and wisdom. And it says to personify or treat them as if they're your relatives. What do we take from that?
That it should be important to you.
Like, what do we
Our
do?
family.
Exactly. What do we do with our relatives that we probably don't with strangers? Yeah.
Have Christmas dinner.
Have Christmas dinner. Yeah. We defend them. We'll come to their defense, come to their rescue, make sure that that they know they're loved, that they know they're important. We should treat wisdom and understanding in such a manner. That's a pretty cool thought there to keep in mind. That they may, so that verse 5 says that they meaning wisdom and understanding, you know, what he's talked about over and over again. So we treat wisdom and understanding as if it's part of our family, that they, wisdom and understanding, may keep you from the strange woman, here we go again, from the stranger which flattereth with her words. So the next whole stretch of passage, all the way down till the end of the chapter, just about, I think. The pages are stuck together. Yeah, the end of the chapter. It talks about the issue of women again. So it says in verse 6, "For the window of my house I looked through my casement." So this is basically the woman, the enticing things of life, the sinful lure that people are drawn to. This is, in this case, a woman, or we could apply it, I guess, to anything. Is speaking here. "For the window of my house I looked through my casement. I beheld among the simple ones. I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding, passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house." So here we're seeing a lot of this usage of the word her. This is not speaking of wisdom. Wisdom is referred to as her in the next chapter or two, has been referred to as her in previous chapters, but this is not talking about wisdom. This is talking about the temptation, the woman in this case, in this story. And she is basically scoping out her next victim, her next person that she's going to lure her way. Verse 9 says, "In the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night." And that's, we've used and heard that analogy of, usually things that go wrong after dark. They just kind of do. We feel, as humans, a little safer in the dark, like we're doing things in hiding, we do things in secret. We can get away with things because nobody can see what you're doing, that sort of stuff. This lady, I think, is probably talking about just evening time, but we could apply it otherwise as well. Verse 10 says, "And behold, there met him a woman with an attire of a harlot, and subtle of heart. Other translations use crafty, I think, word there. The actual Hebrew for that word subtle actually means guarded. And I'm unaware of any English translation that uses that word in its translation, because otherwise in the Bible we hear guard your heart as a positive thing, keeping it guarded from evil. In this case, the actual true context is she is doing this through a guarded heart, in that she's keeping her intentions hidden, that she's an evil thing for these people, and she's guarding her heart of that. And we see here in a moment, she actually presents herself as a gift of God to these men, and lures them in and tricks them into believing that she's placed there just for them, kind of thing. And it turns out she's saying this to everybody, kind of deal. But that's what that word subtle, or what was the other word? Crafty. Guarded is the actual thing, where she's keeping her true intentions hidden, is what that's really meaning there. "She is loud and stubborn. Her feet abide not in her house." So she's always out stirring up trouble. She's always out, not staying at home, not doing what she should, not tending to what's important, but she's out just being loud and proud about who and how she is. Now is she without, now in the streets, and lieth in wait at every corner. I kind of find that interesting, that's what we still see today. We call them streetwalkers. And, especially Hollywood Boulevard, there's a prostitute standing at every corner, street corner. We use those terms, and that's actually from the Bible. I mean, it portrays these type of women in this way, that they're out in the streets. They're hanging out on the street corners, trying to, find somebody to be the next person. So she caught him. So she's out there lurking. This guy's just walking his way, minding his own business, but he's doing it after dark, which tells you he's probably up to no good anyway. And she called him and kissed him, and with an impudent face said unto him. What does that word impudent mean? Do what?
Impudent.
Impudent. Not a word we use every day, is it? So my study Bible, okay, yes. My study Bible says that it is to lie with arrogance.
Yeah.
Confident in what you're saying, you're intentionally deceiving, you're lying with a confident, arrogant attitude.
Oxford says not showing due respect toward another person.
Okay, not showing due respect. Okay. So an impudent, is that how we pronounce that?
Emphasis is on the first item. Impudent.
Impudent, okay. Learn some English today. Amen. Impudent face, so she's speaking with a certain tone and she's blatantly lying. And this is what she says. I have peace offerings with me. This day have I paid my vows. She's presenting herself as a religious person. And she's a gift of God, and she's purified herself. Therefore I came to meet you. I mean, she's like turning this into, I've taken care of my sins and my spiritual well-being, and God has sent me here just for you. I mean, she's really laying this on thick to this guy. Therefore came I forth to meet you diligently to seek your face, and I have found you. I mean, she's really just giving this guy a line here. And I have decked my bed with coverings of tapestry, with carved works, with fine linen of Egypt. I find that interesting too. Most of our high-end sheets today are Egyptian cotton, right? I mean, this goes all the way back to Bible day. This is 3,000-year-old writings we're reading here. So, and that was a common thing back in that day. Even wives, if they wanted to have that special evening, they would put spices and special tapestries on the bed, and I won't get into the details, but throughout probably y'all's marriages, at some point we would light candles and set the scene, have some romantic music playing, and she set this kind of scene. She's shaking her head, no. She's telling on you now, Bill.
She never did that.
So this woman took the initiative to do this for her, passers-by. But she has created this romantic scene in this evening, and she says, I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until the morning. Let us solace ourselves with loves. For the good man is not at home. Uh-oh. Well, my husband's away, but I've got all this stuff dressed up for us. It says, the good man is not at home. He is gone on a long journey, and hath taken a bag of money with him, and will come home at the day appointed. That bag of money means he's got enough money to stay gone for a while. He's taking care of business, so why don't we take advantage of this kind of thing? I mean, this is the situation that's been set up here. With her much fair speech, she caused him to yield. With the flattering of her lips, she forced him. So it's getting the portrayal that she's just been really, really convincing to this guy, and to the point that it says she forced him. He goes in after her straightway, as an ox goeth to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks. Oxes have no idea when we see the cows in the trucks going down the interstate. We know what's going to happen to them. They're heading to the slaughterhouse, and they're going to be in somebody's hamburger bun before too long. And they don't know it. They're just going wherever, life is leading. That's kind of the description of this guy. He's just like, bug to the light kind of thing. I'm going in there and I have no idea this is going to be the demise of me moving forward. And the fool to the correction of the stocks. What is that? You know what that is, Joe? The stocks. Where's that? Yeah, you've seen them cartoons probably. I've seen it more in cartoons in real life. They've got those wooden things. Your head is in there and your hands are in there and they lock you. That's what a stock is. And it says that the fool is being led to the stocks, I guess not realizing he's not going to be able to get out. So it's just done in ignorance, lack of wisdom, poor judgment, called non-discernment. And we could use all these words we've been hearing and learning. Do this. Hearken unto me now, therefore, O children. So that's kind of the end of the story. Well, verse 23 says, till a dart strike through his liver, as a bird hasteth to the snare, and knoweth not that it is for his life. So that's kind of the conclusion of the end of this guy's situation. It's just not going to end well for him at all. And then that's the end of the story, and it shifts back to wisdom and understanding talking here, or Solomon, I guess, the writer of this. It says, hearken unto me now, therefore, O ye children, and attend to the words of my mouth. Let not thine heart decline to her ways. Go not astray in her paths. For she hath cast down many wounded. So he goes on to say this has been an ongoing thing. She's done this to many, many people. She has cast down many wounded. Yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Her house is the way to hell, going down to the chambers of death. Some people have suggested that AC/DC's song Highway to Hell was based on this idea and possibly this type of passage. You know, the other versions of the Bible use grave or Sheol, but this is talking about the highway to hell. And that's the story I've heard, that they actually use the King James translation of that to come up with that idea. It's really, if you look at the background of that story up, it's about some road, and they're on the road traveling. It's talking about the life on the road as a rock star and all that sort of stuff. But the idea definitely ties in that if you go down that path in life, the end result's not going to be good. Basically, is what it's saying there.
I think this verse is not just talking about adultery and that kind
Sure,
of thing.
absolutely.
Because in the first sentence or two, he says, keep my words, store my commands within you, keep my commands, and you will live.
Right.
It means that if you don't, not just about women and adultery, but keep the commands that he's given, listen to what's right and what's wrong, and
Absolutely.
you will live, and you will probably have a long life. You won't die young if you
Exactly right.
from the sins that you commit, from drinking or smoking or adultery or
Whatever the case
half a
is.
dozen others that we can be engaged in.
I agree with you 100%.
So it's not just about
Right.
the woman.
This
and
one
adultery,
specific
it's about
example.
sin in general.
And that's a great point to make, because the Bible itself really, it uses, for whatever reason, this picture of an adulteress and adultery to talk about our lives outside of God. Our relationship with God through Christ is often referred to as a marriage. What are we called? We are the bride of Christ. He is the groomsman. And one day we will all sit down together at the marriage supper of the Lamb. And anything we do outside of that relationship with God is considered adultery. That's pretty clear through the scriptures. In the end times, the Antichrist will rule. There'll be a one world government, one world religion, one world banking system, and all that. And when you read through the book of Revelation, it refers to that as Great Babylon. And it refers to the people who are being taken by this, that they're indulging into the great whore of Babylon. It uses this analogy all throughout Scripture. Billy, I think you're totally correct. And I think this goes way beyond the fact that Solomon had 1,000 women in his life, literally. The 700 girlfriends and 300 wives and all that sort of stuff. I think he uses that a lot because he dealt with that a lot, evidently. But I think it goes way beyond that and can be applied in any situation. Choosing our right friends, choosing our right path, our right partner in life, we're going to get married to, and all this sort of stuff. I think that's great things that we can look at there.
Hey, did I miss something? I was wondering, what was the reason
what did the woman gain by degrading the man to that point, and many men?
That's a
not just
great
one.
question. What does she have to gain by it?
Yeah.
Is money if she was a prostitute.
If she was prostituting, it was money. If it wasn't, it was just, well, I mean, why do girls act that way today? I'm looking this way because y'all deal with these people at school all the time.
I got no clue.
It's a mystery.
Seems like it's just for the fun of it.
It's just mischief. It's just for the fun of it. This is a disturbing statistic, but I heard through some things I was watching online that this is an interview of some British men who were moving to America. And there were several of them had the same attitude towards American women. This is kind of where this conversation came from. And the statistics showed that by the age of 30, today's women have had on average over 1,000 different partners by the age of 30.
That's a lot.
She says, I'm behind.
Wow.
Great.
And these,
How many days is there between?
that's what I started counting up. I'm like, well, that's pretty much, it's a different dude every day. But that's today's culture. That's what's going on in a lot of our colleges, a lot of our just young people's worlds. And I don't know, it's just, the point was these men were coming over saying, I don't want to be a part of that. Why would I want to be with someone who's been with more people than they can even remember and end up getting who knows what kind of disease, who knows what kind of situation? Is one of these guys going to show back up one day and end up trying to beat me up because I took their woman? And they just don't want to come over here and be a part of this. And that's, the kind of the conversation went to, well, that's, what women are facing these days, and try to make that type of women a victim in the situation, that they can't get a man because they've been with so many. I'm like, well, where's the Bible? And then the guy in the interview actually turned to, well, what does the Bible have to say about the end result, which is kind of to your question, is what do they have to gain of it? I guess it's self-fulfillment. I guess it's trying to find purpose because they don't feel important otherwise, so they try to make themselves feel important by doing things of this nature. I don't know.
And sending him.
And
to
then,
hell,
right.
therefore.
To me, it really spins back to the Garden of Eden. I mean, what did the devil have to get out of tricking Eve into eating of the apple? Did he really benefit from that? The devil didn't gain anything from it.
He was just vindictive.
He was just being vindictive.
That, or he gained the opportunity to win souls to him.
Right,
rather
and-
than to
But in the
God.
end, which I'm pretty sure he knows in the end he's just going to be thrown in the lake of fire.
Exactly.
So he really has nothing to gain from it, but he is the liar of this world, the deceiver that goes out and fools everybody into believing his story and his lies and his tactics. And it's just for vindictiveness, I think.
I was thinking maybe it's more the fact that he knows he's taking away from God
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
what belonged to him.
Exactly. That's
And
exactly
it
what
was
it
Yeah.
kind of a way of seeing what I did. I took these people away from me.
You're right.
As an overview, I think if you're one of the sons that he's referring to, as an overview, he's saying, if you make the right decisions in life, you will probably live a long life and have a successful life. But if you don't make the right decisions, in other words, if you go the wrong way, then every time you make a wrong decision, it's going to cost you.
Absolutely. That's exactly the lesson.
It's sad because if you don't know the Bible, then they don't know that fact
Exactly,
about their
exactly.
lives.
Right. And that's what Solomon is trying to push, is we need to be teaching our kids these things. We need to be teaching them. They're not going to get it in school. So I'm going to teach them in church, and I'm going to teach them at home, and I'm going to do everything I can to equip them to know this sort of stuff. This is not from a father's viewpoint, an easy conversation or lesson to teach a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, but you do need to be aware of this, because this is the age where that kind of starts. You're going to start seeing women or girls trying to work you a little bit and trick you into this and even boys are gonna try to lure you into,
It's
you
not
know,
just girls,
Yeah.
the guys the same.
going down the
on other
road,
side.
come party with us, come drink with
It's
us,
actually
come,
probably worse with guys than it is
Well.
the other way around. Because, you know, they're just trying to pull you, get you to do something you're not supposed to be doing.
and
I see
why?
it all the time in the bathrooms, they be
Right.
doing stuff.
Gotcha, yeah. We've had kids overdose in the bathroom with drugs and stuff. And we had to get paramedics to come out there and try to revive them and all this. And Jep, I'll get to you. Jep Robertson kind of told that same story. I mentioned this before. He used to drink and did drugs and all that for a while. And he was sitting at the bar one night. He said it kind of hit him weird. His buddies were like, "We're real sure glad you're here with us." Because it made them feel not so bad about the choices they've made when one of the Robertsons was involved in the same things they were involved with. So it was trying to make themselves feel better about knowing the bad choices that they had made. And Jeff, fortunately, was able to pull out of that, and the family intervened, and it turned out to be a good story. But yeah, there's just all kinds of demented reasons why people just do these sorts of things. It's just for pleasure, for fun, for trying to make themselves feel better about what they're doing when they know they're doing things wrong. It's a very common thing in our society today.
Misery loves company.
It's
Yeah,
gotta be
misery
hard.
breeds misery, that's right.
It's difficult when you're a young person sometimes to realize that, okay, this is a decision.
Right,
It's a decision that I need to make one way or the other. Am I gonna fool around with these gals, or am I gonna drink, or am I gonna
Right.
smoke, or am I gonna invest my money, or am I gonna spend it foolishly?
Exactly.
It's always a decision,
you're right.
and he's telling you,
That's really what he's
use
getting
your brain, use your
But
head.
then it stems back to home life too, when
Yeah.
they talk. like,
what you're taught or not taught.
Yes.
Yes,
Well, I was just gonna say, misery loves company.
yeah.
My daughter has been approached by girls,
Mm.
you know, in an immoral way, and actually being pressured, you know, because they tell her that she's gay, and Sarah's going, well, no, I'm not.
No, I'm not.
But, you know, applying pressure, trying to convince these other
Yeah.
girls that that's what they need to do.
Well, that's how this whole trans movement has caught fire across the nation, is a lot of these politically driven teachers are talking the kids into saying, well, do you really feel like you're a boy? Or maybe you think, that happened to me, honestly, when I was teaching at a community college in North Carolina. This was mid-2000s. And I forget the exact year of the day, but it was the day that all the gay people came out nationwide. It was like a certain day that they were all going to do this effort that launched really what we've seen everything turn into today with the LGBTQ plus IA, whatever it is now, movement. And we all went out to lunch as a department. Well, everybody left but me and him because he had driven me to the thing. And he spent about 20 minutes after the lunch, this was before y'all were even born, trying to convince me that I was possibly gay. He was like, so you've never had any thoughts about same-sex attraction or anything? I'm like, well, no. Are you sure? I mean, he just sat there and kept going on and on and on, like what you're saying. And there's pressure from people to just, and why do they do that? Because they know what they're doing is wrong. Though all of God is written upon their own hearts, they know they're doing stuff is wrong, but they want to talk other people, especially those who profess to be believers, to join them so they don't feel so bad about what's going on in their own life. So that's probably what's happening with Sarah.
And especially young people,
Yeah,
because
they don't have the foundation
They prey
that-
on young people because they, how do you argue with some guy that's 10, 20 years old?
yeah. Well, that what makes me so furious is they're doing this at school, elementary schools, and they're confusing these kids to the point, as kids haven't even developed to that point, shouldn't even be thinking about that sort of stuff at this point. And they're already driving that in kindergarten, preschool. I mean, there's a literature I've seen that's geared towards preschool and kindergartners that talk about this sort of stuff.
Yeah, they can change their identity every day.
Yeah, it's
They
crazy.
said, what are you gonna be today?
Right. Y'all heard of anything in your classes? I mean, we're talking about y'all's generation and younger.
People in my grade that are trained.
And you're in 8th grade, right? So 3 people. I've had students in my classes in 9th grade that are of that nature.
We have 7th and 8th graders that are that.
Yeah.
And it's mainly boys wanting to be girls, and they have the long hair and
Really?
the crop tops and the makeup, lipstick, and the nail polish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got
But we don't
both.
say anything to them. I think we can get paperwork we do.
Right. We've got both at the tech school and technical school. We've got both. And it's just in both directions as well. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, chapter 7 is a good warning of this enticement is there, it exists, and you need to stay away from it, basically. And if you don't, this is going to be the end result. But chapter 8, we probably just get through chapter 8, which is fine, maybe part of it. Chapter 8 deals with kind of what Bill was saying is think this through before you make a decision. Before you go down this path, we need to think this through. And this is where it kind of it shifts back to wisdom being personified as a woman. And starting in verse 12, it actually, the conversation seems to shift as if wisdom itself is doing the speaking and said, I, me, my. And it starts talking as if wisdom is literally the person that's speaking the words here. So let's start in chapter 8, verse 1.
In my house, that's the way it is.
Yeah, there you
Wisdom
go.
is a woman.
Wisdom of the woman, that's it. He's trying to make up for the lack of candles.
That's enough.
Get that in writing.
Yeah, she's like, write that down. All right, chapter 8, verse 1. Doth not wisdom cry and understanding put forth her voice? So here we're talking about wisdom being personified as a woman. She stands in the top of the high places, by the way of the places of the paths. She cries at the gate, at the entry of the city. And if you think about that, back to what chapter 7 has talked about, as these guys are walking into the city, possibly they're travelers on the road, they're passerbys. As they're walking in, it says wisdom is there all the time, crying out, listen to me, make the right choice. Don't go down these paths you shouldn't be going down, because it's not going to end well. She cries at the gates, at the entry of the city, at the coming of the doors. Unto you, O men, I call. So it's like there's a evil woman calling and a wise woman calling out. And there is, we see the little devil and the angel on the shoulders kind of thing. It's that type of thing, I guess. It says, I call, and my voice is to the sons of man. O ye simple. Is that not how it started out in chapter 7? It says that she was looking at the simple when he walked by. Here is the same message, or a similar voice, but a different message of wisdom going to the same group of people, we could say. O ye simple, understand wisdom, and ye fools, be ye of an understanding heart. Hear, for I will speak of excellent things, and the opening of my lips shall be right things. We've seen in chapter 7 of what comes out of the wrong type of lips, the soothsaying lips, the convincing in the wrong direction lips. And she says, I've got lips too, and the things that come out of my mouth are going to be right things. For my mouth shall speak truth, and wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing froward or perverse in them. So this is again wisdom speaking. It's shifted to she's saying, as a first person perspective, I'm telling you these things. They are all plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that find knowledge. Receive my instruction, wisdom says, and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice of gold. We've seen that before, and we see here in verse 11 that having wisdom is way better than everything that you can buy with foolish gold and foolish silver and foolish decisions. Verse 11 says, "For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it." Goes back to that thought. Verse 12 especially, it really starts saying, "I say this, my words, me." Let's look at the next passage. "I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and find out knowledge of witty invention." So what does that word prudence mean? We've heard people being called a prude before, and that's the opposite of what this is. A prude is a stick in the mud, somebody that's always got a negative thing to say. This is definitely not what this is talking about. I dwell with prudence,
Discernment.
good discernment, making wise decisions. Thinking things through, as Bill was saying. How is the decision I'm going to make right now going to affect me a year down the road? How's it going to affect others a year down the road? How's it going to affect me and others 10 years down the road? Where is this eventually going to go? Thinking things through. I think I've mentioned this. I play a game with my engineering students, and in any given moment I say, what in the world could possibly go wrong here? Sometimes it's because their laptop's too close to the table, or they're doing something that's obviously going to not work, and this is kind of the same thing. Think through, what are the end results of my decisions I'm making right now? Where is this going to lead me down the future? What is this going to do to other people down the future? If we spend a lot more time doing things like that, I think we could all testify and look back on moments in our life and say, yeah, things would have probably ended up a lot easier, a lot less cost. For some people, a longer life. I've seen all kinds of youth with their years cut short because of bad decisions that they've made. But that's what prudence means. Wisdom dwells with prudence. I find out knowledge of witty inventions. I'm aware of these things that are trickery, and I understand that, the things that are good, the things that are bad, I can tell the difference because I'm using wisdom and understanding. And here it goes back to where we've already read many chapters ago. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil. That should be where our goal is to be in our life. The fear of the Lord, the reverence of God, so much to the point that we hate evil, that we hate pride and arrogance, and we hate the evil way. And the froward mouth do I hate. Wisdom says that she hates all of these things. And the fear of the Lord is to hate those things as well. Counsel is mine, and sound wisdom I am understanding. I have strength. So wisdom is saying, I've got counsel. I am counsel. I am sound wisdom. I am understanding. I have strength. By me kings reign, and princes decree justice. By me, wisdom speaking, princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. I love them that love me. Interesting relationship here. And those that seek me early shall find me. This is not God speaking, this is wisdom speaking. Wisdom itself. Of course, we could apply that to God as well. Riches and honor are with me, yea, durable riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. I lead in the way of righteousness, in the midst of the paths of judgment, that I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, and I will find their treasures. I'm going to pause there and we'll end it there. We can talk about some of this. I'll pick up because it shifts to a little bit even more impactful thought moving forward, and we'll save that for next week. But what do we think so far? Learned anything? Reflections on anything? Moments we should go back and wish we could relive and redo based on what we're learning? I've got a lot of those I could share.
If you could know all those things though as you grew up,
Right.
then you would be perfect. And you're not.
Yeah, you still wouldn't be
You're gonna
perfect.
Still just
You're
make
still,
all the
you know.
mistakes and learn from it.
I think it's cool he uses a metaphor, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
A woman as an adulteress is a bad person, and then in the chapter 8 he puts over the woman is wisdom. And
Exactly.
This is the way you should do.
It is really neat the way that it's all set up and personified.
I like the way it's, see, me while you're young, and you'll be
Mhm.
blessed with financial, for,
Exactly.
all that.
That's absolutely a fact.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
And while I studied the Bible at their age, I didn't really dwell on things like this. Nobody really sat me down and we dug deep into these kind of concepts.
We didn't have a Jonathan Castile class.
Well, I'm learning as much as y'all, so I appreciate the conversation, but that's why I try to stress to these guys this type of stuff. Because it's just something that the younger you get on board with this sort of thing, the better your life is going to be, the less foolish. And like you said, I mean, you will make foolish decisions. It's going to happen, but hopefully it'll be less than otherwise. You
I
know.
do have a question.
Yes, absolutely.
Why would Solomon or anyone in the Old Testament lie about wisdom being a woman when women were not valued during that time?
That is an interesting take. And it could be because of all of his follies, of how he was duped by so many women. And maybe maybe he wished that there were some godly women in his life that would have told him otherwise.
I struggled with that too,
I don't
sitting there
know.
thinking about, he's dwelling this out, and then how he changed. You know what I'm saying? The very thing he's saying to avoid, he falls for it.
Exactly. And you're right, because he wrote this before he
Right.
fell for all that.
Right.
And then he ends up not taking his own advice. It is interesting, yeah. It just shows the aspect of humanity, you know, that it does happen eventually to some people. And
About his having all those wives, if you stop and think, you know, what was going on during that time, during those early periods of this shown in the Bible. Well, they're having all these battles, and what's happened to the men? They've been killed.
right,
So there's a whole lot more women than there are men.
that's true.
And women live longer than men anyway. I mean,
Well, sure, because they were mainly stayed at home and they
But
didn't
you
get
gotta
out
use
and
good
battle.
sense. Men sometimes do some stupid stuff.
You are correct. And with that, we'll close out. Thank you guys online for tuning in. We'll finish chapter 8 and chapter 9 next week.